Hi everyone, welcome back to Fig and Thistle Books. I'm Amanda and I'm here with a readerly ramble. Basically, I'm just going to talk about what I read, what I'm reading, and what's up next. And this is my third time recording this. The first time I thought, oh, Amanda, you were so rambly and you carried on and it was too long. And so then I deleted it. And then I tried to record a very succinct one that just came off as rushed and awkward. So I'm here, third time's a charm. Whatever you get is what you get. I'm not deleting it again. So let's get started with what I've read. So I read for Lucy's Bronte 200 celebration, which I will link down below. I joined in on the reading of Wuthering Heights. This was my third full reread of the book. Really quick plot synopsis. This book is about a family, the Earnshaws, specifically a girl named Catherine, her older brother Henley, and one day her father leaves to go on some sort of trip, and he comes back with a little boy named Heathcliff. And Heathcliff, it's implied he possibly has some Roma origins. They don't know where he came from, and he's kind of raised as a member of the family and sort of the dad's favorite, which causes some strain between Heathcliff and Hindley Earnshaw, Catherine's older brother. So as you can imagine, when dad dies, everything goes to hell in a handbasket, and there's bitterness and rivalry and jealousy and divisions based on class and birthright, and things get crappy. And the first part, it kind of tells of their childhood, and then the second part, kind of the aftermath. Of course, they grow older. Heathcliff and Catherine fall in love. Things go horribly wrong. Lots of gothic elements in here, very moody writing, lots of like wind whistling and rain dashing at the window panes, and it's beautiful writing. So I wanted to talk really quickly about how I've read this differently every single time. So the first time I read it, I was about 14, and I thought this was the most deliciously romantic novel I had ever read. I was like, Heathcliff is dreamy. He's not. He's an abusive scumbag, but I thought he was dreamy. I thought Catherine was like some sort of martyr that nobody got. It just played into my teenage drama brain, and I loved it. So I went back to reread it in college, and I started rereading it, and I was like, this is not the book I remember. And I closed it and I put it down, and I was like, well, I'm not going to reread it because I don't want that wonderful experience I had at 14 to be, colors bother me, to be sullied in any way. So I didn't try to reread it during college. Finally, I picked it up after college. It was probably about 8 years ago. I was pregnant and I had to go on bed rest for a weekend early in my pregnancy with my son, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to reread Wuthering Heights, and I read it and I freaking loved it. I did have a very different reading experience from when I was in high school. I was basically like, this is the tale of when two horrible people fall in love, and I enjoyed it a lot. I wasn't as enamored with the characters, but I did appreciate the plot and the beautiful writing and the atmosphere. It was a very atmospheric novel. So I decided to pick it up, and I had another completely different reading experience. I was focused less on Kathy and Heathcliff in this reading and more on the character of Nellie. Now, Nellie is basically a housemaid, nanny type who seems to be older than Catherine and Hindley and Heathcliff, but not by a ton, like because she seems kind of like a young teenager when she begins caring for them in the household, and she basically raises Heathcliff after Hindley is in charge, after the dad dies and everything goes crappy. She's like Heathcliff's advocate. She takes care of Hindley's son Hareton. She's kind of like taking care of everybody. What's interesting about the character of Nellie is she is narrating most of this book. This book has two narrators. One is Nellie, and the other is Mr. Lockwood, who's a tenant of Mr. Heathcliff's, who comes and visits with Mr. Heathcliff. He's a gentleman, just gentleman tenant. And so we get perspectives, but the bulk of it is Nellie telling Mr. Lockwood this tale. And what's interesting is when things go awry, Nellie is usually involved. Either she withholds information that would be real important for people to have, or she spills the beans, or doesn't do what she's told someone she would do. And so I get shades of unreliable narrator. I like to think of her as kind of a Mrs. Danvers of Wuthering Heights, even Mrs. Danvers from Rebecca. Not necessarily that she's intentionally nefarious, but that she is trying to find her place in this family, and people have used and abused her. They used her for emotional support, and she doesn't get much in return. She comes off as very lonely, and really genuinely caring for a couple of the characters, and then just they kind of like disregard her because she's the help. So that was a fascinating reading, and this, once again, a classic. You can go back to it and read it and read it, and always find something new. So that's Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The next book I read had me like, I'm gonna call it a literary thriller, but it's not what you think. It is Gail Crowther and Peter K. Steinberg's These Ghostly Archives, The Unearthing of Sylvia Plath. This is not a biography of Sylvia Plath, but it's more an exploration of her archives and what is found, what is not found, how archives have been used to piece together missing pieces of Sylvia Plath's history, can help correct some of the popular misconceptions of who Sylvia Plath was as a person and a writer. This is not just the Plath archives, which there are 3 main Plath archives: Indiana University of Bloomington, Smith College, and Emory University. And this also talks about, like, they go to the BBC archive, or they have access to letters and items that are in personal archives owned by individuals that are not available to the public, which was completely like, I was like, oh my god. So I was totally immersed in this. It's very thorough, it's very thoughtful, but it is not, it's a book about archives and archival studies, but this is not a dry academic text at all. I love how this is written very much with a lot of weight and a lot of it talks about different biographies. It talks about different ideas of what an archives should be, of different theories, but in a very approachable way. It's written like almost like a personal essay about their exploration, their journey, and piecing these things together. And I read this, I've pre-ordered it because I wanted it so badly, and then with school and everything, I hadn't had a chance to read it. I happened to read this while there was a gigantic auction of Sylvia Plath's items, and along with her husband Ted Hughes, but I won't talk about him. So basically their daughter Frida Hughes was auctioning off tons of stuff: clothing, copies of the bell jar, drafts of things, necklaces, juvenilia, artwork, inscribed books, and so I'm reading this going, I hope all this stuff lands in an archive somewhere so people can study it. One of the most fascinating essays in here, it's kind of divided up in little essays based on different themes or elements of the archives, was one where I think it's Gail Crowther is discussing, I think that's it. It might be Peter K. Steinberg. I won't bother checking right now. But her Plath's silvery kind of prom dress that she wore to, like, I think it was the Yale Junior Prom, and she might have worn, I think she wore it when she went to New York for that internship with Mademoiselle. And when they take it out of the box, and you can tell that, like, her body was in there, and there were alterations, and the description, and how that experience was so tangible and so, like, enriching to reading her work or reading her biography. And there's also a discussion of her hair. There are some tresses of Sylvia Plath's in one of the archives. I want to say it's Bloomington. I have to check. It might be Smith, but I'm pretty sure it's Bloomington. And how they were able to touch Sylvia Plath's hair. And then one of the authors discusses how at a conference they talked about that, and people were kind of horrified and like, oh, that's her hair. And it reminded me of when I was reading Nancy Milford's Savage Beauty, which is a biography of Edna St. Vincent Millay. It's fabulous. Go check it out. And she talks about seeing some of Edna St. Vincent Millay's hair and how it was still kind of this burnishy red, and she did not want to touch it. It's just like this, it makes things so real, and just, Plath is not a muse, she's not a POTUS, she's not an icon, she's a bloody brilliant woman who, yeah, had a mental illness, but was a fantastic mom, a fantastic writer, who was human, had flaws, had, positive traits, and it just kind of strips away this whole, like, I get annoyed when people put Plath on this, like, pedestal, and like she's some sort of goddess and she's held to this different standard, and they don't appreciate that she's a woman with a brilliant mind and a great deal of creativity. See, I'm getting all flustered, I get all mad, and they don't see her as a person, as a human with flaws, and people kind of tear her apart or they minimize her work, and it pisses me off. So this book, this exploration of the archives, really helps to strip away a lot of that glamour surrounding Plath. I mean, I am a Plath fan, but Homegirl was a human. She's not this made-up myth of this, like, tragic poet muse thing. That's bullcrap. It was a wonderful woman with a brilliant mind and great creativity, and she needs to be appreciated as a awesome writer who was a human. So see, now this is when I was going to record this time, because I get on my Plath soapbox, and then I just so I'm insane. I'm not going to say any more about that. I'm not going to edit that because I'm not. Okay, so let's move on to what I'm reading. I'm reading Good Bones by Maggie Smith. I gotta have a poetry collection there, and I'm enjoying it, but I need to go back and reread what I've already read, because in the evening, my kids like to have book time. They don't necessarily like for me to read to them. They're really independent little kids, and so my first grader, Atticus, will read to me or read to himself, and then my 5-year-old Persephone will kind of like, she likes to pretend to be the teacher, so she will take her little stack of books and read them to her class, her imaginary classmates, and that's how they enjoy having book time. And so I'm like, well, you know what, I'll join along, I'll read, my husband's been reading, we'll just have like family reading time. That'll be really positive. But what happens is two things. One, I'm not really able to focus. I thought, okay, poems, I could read a poem here or there. I don't need to keep up with plot and characters. I'm not going to get, so invested where I'm like, y'all got to wait 50 pages. Let me finish this chapter. So, but what happens is every time I go to read a poem, the kids are like, Mom, 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 which is fine, but I'm not really absorbing these poems as much as I typically would. Another thing is, when I read poetry, I annotate quite heavily, and I don't do that when I'm reading with my kids, because if they see you writing your book, writing annotations with pencil or very light pen, that doesn't really translate, and you will find your books and theirs with Crayola marker, marking out words where they've highlighted. So, and I know this from experience, obviously. So I don't annotate my books when my kids are around. So I'm not getting the full experience. I think I'm going to start over and maybe make this my lunch break read at work and try to really sink my teeth in some of these poems, because they're wonderful. All right, next I went ahead and I started early, and I started on it in April, my reading of Anna Karenina. I've read the first 50 pages. This is not scary. This is not scary. That can look scary. It's not. The first 50 pages flew by. We've got a proposal that has gone horribly wrong. We've got a very interesting character where we start to see sort of the differences between aristocracy and like how things are supposed to be. We have a marriage that's crumbling due to an affair. We have some family coming in to visit. Everyone's kind of assembling one place. We have it's like a soap. Like, I'm serious. It's like As the World Turns, except it's, Tolstoy. So don't be intimidated. The translator, let me get her name right. Translator. Rosamund Bartlett has done a phenomenal job with making this readable, but also keeping a lot of the beauty. There's an introduction in my copy that I skip like the academic type introduction because plot spoilers. I know I read it, but it was a long time ago. It has a bibliography, but it has a note on the translation. It has a really, really helpful note on Russian names and family names, and some stuff on pronunciation. So this Oxford Classics version is just superb. So I hope you're joining us on it in April. And I went ahead and got started because I'm notoriously bad with read-alongs, reading lists. I never finish. About the minute I say I'm going to do this challenge or this reading list, I completely change my mind and decide I'm not going to. So I'm starting early while I'm motivated. The other book, I just started this last night. I'm only 16 pages in, because I was quite sleepy last night, is The Shuttle by Frances Hodgson Burnett. It's a Persephone classic. Let's see here. Show me those impact. Gorgeous. And I haven't really gotten into it enough to know quite what's happening. I do know that this is going to be a tale about America versus Britain, I believe, and we've been introduced to one family, and there's a precocious 8-year-old who seems to be reading people better than, reading adults better than they can read each other, and so, but the beginning of the novel was a bit of a slow start. There was this talk of the shuttle and the weaving the tale across the oceans of these different, and it was lovely, but it was just kind of like I wanted to sink into some characters and plot. So I think last night I was getting to the point where I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be good. I'm getting some characters now and some setups for some things I think are going to happen here. So I will get back to you on all of this maybe next week and let you know how I'm getting on with The Shuttle. Alright, so what's up next? I just have 2 books on my what's up next pile. There might be some more added in there. The first is, I told you guys, The Juniper Tree, Barbara Comyns. I'm going to read it. I'm psyched. It's not that big of a book. It's Grimm's fairy tales retold. It's going to be dark. It's going to be weird. There's probably going to be some magical realism in here, and I'm excited to get to it. The other is The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. This is one that was on my March TBR. It was Costa Book of the Year. The year it was published, which... let's look at the first page, shall we? 2016. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. Next week I will have some reading time, which I'll talk about in a minute. And so I'm thinking I'm going to get to dig into this and knock it out. All right, so bookish news, bookish bits and bobs. So next week my kids are on spring break. So back in January, I took the first week off in April. I was like, I'm going to take the week off. I'm going to do stuff with the kids. I'm going to do some house cleaning. I might, try to fit in a little bit of homework. Well, if you've been following my channel for any period of time, you will know that I have had a bit of a tough time this year. So I decided, I put the kids in spring break day camps. And I'm still taking that week off, and it's going to be momcation. So that's they're going to have fun. They're actually excited. They were like, we didn't want to stay home anyways. And I'm trying to pay off some debts, so I didn't want to spend a huge amount of time on activities and food, just having my kids home for a week. Just ding the budget a bit. So I'm like, okay, fine. We'll go to spring break camp. Y'all go have fun with your friends. This is great. I have a week off. So part of that week, I have to take care of some not fun tasks. I have to do some cleaning type things. I have to deal with some personal issues that have some things that I need to take care of. I need to do homework. The semester is winding down. I mean, I've got like, I think 4 or 5 weeks left, so I've got a lot of schoolwork to do. I'm going to try to put a huge dent in my schoolwork, but then I am planning on reading. Mom needs a break. I'm going to read. And so I talked to my good friend Shannon, and next week we're getting a hotel for one night in one of my favorite little Georgia towns, Athens, Georgia. And our plan is we're going to go book shopping. We're going to go get some good food and some coffee. We're going to go back to the hotel room and we're going to read. So this year I wasn't able to swing. Last year in the summer I did a book nerd summer camp where me and some of my really good friends got together for like, I think it was 3 nights. 2 or 3 nights. In a cabin in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we read and we went book shopping, we talked, it was great, and I don't think I'm going to be able to swing that this summer because school and various family things going on. So I thought, you know what, while I have the chance, let me just one night just have a little bit of a break and get some reading done. So I will probably be making a TBR for that with more books than I could possibly read. And I'm probably going to post a video of my to-do list for my momcation to see how much of the stuff I get done. I may decide to just, binge watch the Great British Baking Show again and not do a damn thing. We'll just have to see. But I have really big ideas right now for what I'm going to do. So that's everything with this Read Really Ramble. I have some more videos I'm going to try to record and get up this week and next week. And I hope you all are enjoying what you're reading. Let me know if you have any ideas, opinions, or anything based on these books. And I will talk to you later. All right, bye.